Maheen, I'm going to turn to you, and you've got a great perspective on this. You're catalyzing infrastructure development, focused on Pakistan, not exclusively, but focused on Pakistan, bringing institutional investors in, including domestic pools of capital. So can we have, and I'll just make this observation, that sometimes almost too much focus is on bringing in external capital. Obviously, we need to scale it up, but the blending of the two and your perspective would be very helpful. Thanks.
So Pakistan is one of the most vulnerable countries when it comes to climate change. So there is a very real stake that we have in ensuring climate finance gets to the right projects. Now, Pakistan has actually developed some good policies with regards to financing green projects, in particular towards renewables, towards electric vehicle use, and all of that is coming through concessional financing, which is available actually today and has been available for the last few years. I think the issue that we have faced is that the local lending markets and the local capital markets have yet to determine how to price that risk effectively and how to fund that risk in such a way that it is sustainable not only for the project, but also provides continuous capital to such projects in the future. And I think it's that element of that trigger that we need in the markets today to push financing from the domestic pool towards such climate action projects. And this is where you have blended finance, and this is where you have companies like Infrazamin come in, because we look at the debt side, we look at the equity side, and we look at credit enhancement facilities that can actually de-risk a project and make it viable and bankable and bring that to the local capital community. Now, the very interesting thing about projects such as Infrazamin is that they are incredibly scalable. For every $50 that is invested by Infrazamin, we can release up to $500 million into the local market. And that is the aim that we plan to do in Pakistan over the next 3 to 5 years or so. And that in itself, that $500 million, can actually mobilize billions in the form of private sector capital, simply because the comfort factor is built in and the guarantee structures are there to provide that comfort towards such new technologies. And I think what we have seen consistently is that every time there's a technology shift, such as what happened in telecom, say about 20 years ago, we're again at the element of that shift, where we are looking at new technologies in solar, new technologies on the electric vehicle side, the carbon emission side. And it takes time for the markets to price that risk. But we can trigger that through enhancement structures that allow that risk then to be better understood and in the future be priced without the need for credit enhancement. And that's certainly the aim that we are trying to achieve today. I think, beyond that, it's also important to focus on the supply of projects. And for that, while Pakistan recognizes its vulnerabilities, ultimately, the supply is ensured if it's conducive to do so. And that can only happen in stable macroeconomic conditions where it makes sense to put forward investment. So it is the responsibility of all of us to consider how to generate those kind of environments that are conducive towards investing in emerging markets, particularly in Pakistan. We must have conversations about debt relief, because it is impossible to talk about delivering more on that front for any country without creating the fiscal space to do so. We must talk about technology transfers that will enable pricing to become cheaper, that will enable financing to be easier for such projects. And finally, when we bring in domestic capital pools, and we do so by de-risking the investments around them, we must also consider how the international community is going to support vulnerable countries like Pakistan through that $100 billion commitment with a coherent plan towards adaptation and mitigation strategies as well.
Fantastic. There's a lot there which, if we have time, and I'm not quite sure how much time we have, I do know we have the U.S. Treasury Secretary here, so we will keep to time.